Is being recorded.
So I just wanted to summarize what I have been learning over these past few sessions. So we are learning thought management here, and we did learn about mind. So the mind is a very powerful thing. So as I was saying, we do a lot of waste management. We want to save our environment. We want to save our precious resources, but we don't realize that very invaluable resource what we have, that thought power. So am I using that power of my thought in a constructive way or in a destructive way? So Dr. Leena has been teaching us, what kind of distortions can come in our thoughts? How do we watch our thoughts? How do we make them neutral or positive? So I'm sharing positive thoughts with all of you. I hope you're enjoying. You're also learning to watch your thoughts, take a pause, and play that detective game, or just, watch it and catch yourself, and give yourself marks sometime. Hey, what kind of thinking am I doing? Which bucket do I need to put it into? Is it positive? Is it waste? Is it necessary? Or, it is elevated. Like there are various kind of thoughts you can categorize it into. But my experience is when you fill it with positive thoughts, your life will start to change. And I'm saying that from my experience because I do that consciously. Situations do come in everybody's life, but how do we take it positive? So that's what the art we are trying to learn here. With that, I will request Dr. Leena to take it over.
Thank you, Poonam. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us again today. I would be absolutely happy to share the slides from the previous sessions, and I can send them over to you, Poonam, and you can share it with the group. That's absolutely fine. So, we will. I will go back to the slides and make sure we are all. There I go. Okay. So, I'll, go kind of do a quick recap. We've been working on and studying, or like not studying, we are working on learning strategies to dispute negative thoughts. And so basically, we've talked about detective thinking, where we become detectives of our own thoughts and we try to find an evidence to see if my thought is 100% true or false. And we've also talked about other strategies that sometimes it helps us to talk with another person and get opinion from someone you trust. Um, Sometimes if you don't have somebody like that, it helps to, think if your friend came with this question or this thought or problem, what would you tell them? Because generally we notice that we do a very good job of telling others to be kind and take it easy, or don't worry about it. But when it comes to our own self, we tend to be harder on ourselves, and we don't tend to express that same level of kindness and understanding to our own selves. So it's very important to also remind ourselves that if I can do this for others, I definitely can do it for myself. And then sometimes we have to think about, like, yeah, so what I'm thinking is 100% true. Sometimes we don't have control over situations, and so we have to think about, okay, so what, this happens, what if this happens, what if that happens? Yes, so chances are it's going to happen, so let's not worry about why it will happen and how it will happen, when it would happen, and move from those questions and move our energy to what I can do about it. How can I prepare myself to face that or work through that? Can be another, another step there. Um, so, in my slides, okay, there we go. So, the other strategy, so, you know, um, we have been talking about distortion in our thinking. And so I have talked about how we first identify and then we find a challenge or antidotes to, challenge those unhelpful thoughts. And so today we will, go over a few more distorted patterns of thinking, but I thought I would also go over a couple other strategies. um, One is sometimes, we have worries about if I do this, this is what will happen, or I don't want to do this because I worry that I might fail at this, or I may not end up having, a good time. Like for, example, for somebody who has a little bit of that social anxiety, they may worry about if I go to that party, I will not have a good time. So sometimes if we are fearing something that we like, if I do this, this will happen, and you're not sure whether your thought is accurate, you can also try this technique of doing an experiment where you can then actually find out if whatever you are thinking is really going to happen or not. So, so in this case, try to actually go to the party with an open mind and see how it really is and how you really do. And what we know that is that the way our mind works, we anticipate and worry much more in anticipation to something happening. But more often than not, when we actually are facing the situation, we do a great job. We do face it successfully and we come out of it fine. So certainly, a lot of the distortions like what if, and I'll come back to distortions since it might be also relevant to some of these thoughts to recognize those patterns. But for some things like that, doing an experiment might be a way to refute that thought and see what really happens. We actually, in psychology, in cognitive behavioral therapy per se, we talk about this as facing the fear to fight the fear. So, we generally try to avoid things that cause a little bit of discomfort or fear, and we, try to avoid and use avoidance as a coping strategy, which naturally comes to us because, oh, if I have to go and give a speech in front of 100 people, I'm already worrying about it. How will I do? What if I mess up? What if I, make a mistake? What if I embarrass myself? There might be all these kinds of thoughts and worries maybe going through my head. So the thing that really helps to break that fear is to actually face the fear. So even if I'm feeling like really worried about how this is going to go, I show up and I face the fear, and I know that my body may respond to that moment of, being in front of so many people, that challenge by reacting. My heart might be beating fast. I might feel that ball in my tummy. I may feel a little bit shaky, sweaty. We all may have experienced some of this when we've done presentations, when we first started that journey in presentations, whether it was in school or high school or college or in your job world. But what we know is that only when I face that fear, I can fight that fear. And we know that physiologically there will be a spike in the stress hormones and they will drive this physical response in your body where you will feel uncomfortable for a little bit. But later on, as you cross that wave and you reach that peak, there is an extinction burst. You will be fine after a few seconds or few minutes of starting that presentation, and you will be fine. So, and then coming out of that experience, you can be assured that, oh, I felt that so much worse about doing this, but it wasn't that bad after all. So sometimes, doing an experiment and running that experiment on our thoughts and finding out really what I'm worrying about is truly going to happen might be a strategy to dispute those negative thoughts. Um, and then you know, there is another, let's see, why my slides taking time to move. Okay. So, we've talked about this. And then strategies to stop negative thoughts. So we also talk about, um, that, you know, avoiding like some of these thoughts is not totally realistic, but sometimes we can work on limiting them. So sometimes we do have certain real-time worries that may be very realistic, like, how am I going to do, you know, 1 month from now if this continues, or what do I need to be prepared for that? Or there might be some real, like, oh, I have a test coming tomorrow, so what am I going to do about preparing for that? Or I have this assignment or this project due, whatever. So there are some realistic things that generate some kind of worry or anxious thoughts. Um, so sometimes, we can work on just limiting them. If it may not be like, yeah, this is the reality of my situation. I'm having some of these thoughts, but I can actually limit them by, coming up with this whole concept of what we call as setting up a worrying time. So, there's this interesting concept in CBT that, just like we have time to, um, eat our meals, time to sleep, time to exercise, we carve out time for certain essential day-to-day activities. Similarly, we can work on limiting our worrisome thoughts or thoughts that are negative and unwanted or not that necessary to be thinking about all the time. So the idea is to pick a time and tell yourself, this is my worrying time. I am going to every day at this time set the clock, and for 5 to 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever time, I'm going to think about all the things I need to be worried about. And when that time is over, I'm going to pack up and say it's done, and I'm not going to think about it again. So this is an interesting concept, but it does work. Basically what we know is that some stubborn negative thoughts keep coming back in circles and come back again and again. And so these strategies, this strategy of setting up a worry time really helps you to, like, if it's coming, it's almost like, you know, if I have an appointment with my uh, client or my friend at certain time, even though I have lots of different thoughts about what I'm going to talk to them about, or, if they are pinging me in between, I'm going to ignore it and say, oh, no, let's discuss it when we meet today. Let's discuss it when we meet today. It's kind of the same concept. So every time I'm noticing that thought that I need not be spending so much time thinking about again and again, and it's keeps coming back to me, I'm going to say, hey, yeah, I will talk to you at 5 o'clock, which is our time when we, discuss this. So that is one strategy to limit your time in spending time in negative thinking or anxious thinking, or, time to, not keep going back. Sometimes, we see that people do get in this circular pattern of thinking, and we call them as ruminations. That even though you've thought through that thought and you've come up with a solution, or some kind of resolution was established, sometimes these thoughts can be very stubborn. They keep coming back, and you feel like you have to go through that whole process all over again. So for people who have that type of tendency, this strategy can be very effective. And you are basically saying, not now, knock, knock, no, right now, you are going to come back at 5 o'clock. That's when we are going to talk about and worry about this as much as we want. And then we are going to pack the day for that. And then until the next worry time is coming, I'm not going to worry about this thing. So it's an interesting concept. I would love to hear your thoughts about that.
Yes, Dr. Leena, you made a story. So what then? Uh, so her husband is right now in India. He's in India for more than 2 months now, and
Okay.
he's kind of stuck. He's not able to come because of the current situation. So I did check her. I called her. Then we talked about the same concept you're sharing. So she was telling me, her productivity at work was impacted. She kept thinking negative. Then I had sent her one video where, the same concept was discussed. Just decide a window and tell yourself, this is my worry window. I'm not going to worry throughout the day, but I will worry in this window. And she applied that, and she was remarkably telling me it worked great for her. And she's again productive, she's focused, and she tells herself in the evening, I will think about my husband and his well being and all the chores I'm managing, but I will not think about him when I'm working. So, thank you so much for sharing this concept.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I'm glad that you actually were able to guide her through this experiment, almost like, right? She probably said, okay, I'll try this experiment, and it worked for her. And she called you back and said, hey, it works. So,
Right.
so yeah, thank you. That's really helpful. I see Sanjeev wants to maybe ask a question. I see hand raised there. Yes, Sanjeev.
Hello?
Yes, Sanjeev, I can hear you.
What about a neurotic kind of thinking? Is negative thoughts versus neurotism, neurotic kind of thinking?
What comes under negative thoughts?
And neurotism, neurotic kind of thinking. Neurotism. Neurotism. Getting my point?
I'm actually, Poonam, did you get that more clearly? My audio might not be very clear.
There's some
Yes,
problem with
same
this.
here, Sandy. Why don't you type it? That will be better because we are not able to hear it.
I do it.
Okay. Okay, Dr. Leena, meantime, we can move on to the next one.
Sure. Yeah, so the other strategy is actually, just like when we are driving and when we are walking, we certainly pay attention to traffic lights and traffic signals. Whenever I'm thinking, I'm very convinced that this particular thought that I have been now I know that I'm recognizing a distortion there, that I'm doing fortune telling or maybe catastrophic thinking or discounting positive, whatever that distortion I've identified, I know that, I don't need to believe in this thought. It's actually ruining my mood every time I think it that way. So sometimes even like imagining a stop light sign coming in front of you as soon as you have that thought and telling yourself stop, and tell yourself this is not helpful for me. It ruins my mood, it ruins my day. So I'm going to, not go back and think about it. I'm going to stop here and find a way to distract myself, or I can calm down my by breathing or relaxation exercises, and I can just, find a way to engage my mind into something else, and I can move on. So even this is, often helpful strategy that, people find this having a visual reminder of that stop sign can be another way to tell yourself like, stop, this is a waste of time, or this is ruining my time and day and mood, so I'm not going to focus on this. So, I will come to the last slide in a bit, but I still have some of those cognitive distortions handout up, and I can. Are you able to see this handout?
Yes, Leena.
Yes. So, I wanted to open it up again and see. We did talk about a few of these in the last few sessions, and I wanted to find out if there was interest in going over the other ones and share some practical day-to-day examples in your life where you feel like you've been, maybe having some of these distortions. I can share some of my day-to-day examples. Like I said, we all have these kind of slightly twisted, distorted thinking patterns, or we call them thinking traps. But it's really important to know there's a label to what themes I have in my thinking, so I can actually try to challenge that and not believe in that. So I'm happy to go over some of these and hear some kind of thoughts about that, or I can also have you guys ask any other questions you have about the stuff we've discussed, or I can move on my presentation. I certainly like it to be interactive. Like yesterday, we had a good interaction, and that was helpful to I think others to have some practical questions and answers to that.
So, Dr. Leena, so Sanjeev did type. So he's talking about negative thinking and neurotism. And
Neurotism.
the question, yeah, so maybe we can take it during next time. But there is a very simple another question. So Kapil is asking how to be happy at home.
How to be happy at home. Kapil, is that a specific question related to current times or just in general?
No, no, it's specific to the current time.
Yeah, so may I ask you to tell me what are some of the challenges you're noticing being at home right now that's taking away your happiness?
It's just like mood swings. Like some days, I feel like productive at work. Some days I don't feel. So maybe because I'm not getting any fresh air.
Mhm.
So, so yeah, I mean, if you can just share some thoughts. Like, I mean, I know that exercise can help, but yeah, I'm not able to do much exercise. So if there is any other way.
So I'll share a few thoughts. Poonam, you can definitely nudge me if I'm taking away the time for the last couple minutes. So I'm keeping an eye on the clock, so I'll try my best to, answer this in a short and concise manner. So, you know, um, I, there is, if you ask me, um, happiness is actually, I mean, the way we understand based on CBT construct, it's actually a internal state of mind, and that can be achieved by how I think about the situation, how I face the situation. So it's somewhat, can be like achieved by looking at those two variables. So, one thing that you mentioned that you've been feeling motivated some days and some days not, and naturally our physical activity is limited right now. The level of exercise people get otherwise going to a gym or walking, running is limited. So there is certainly the endorphins there are not getting released, and we are not getting that burst of endorphin release and happiness through that. But you know, I want to also normalize what you're feeling and not be concerned about that in certain ways, because yes, right now with the circumstances we are in and the restrictions we are in, we are definitely limited to do things that can bring that additional joy and happiness. And if you are feeling a little bit low or down or lack not as motivated on some for some days, allow that feeling to happen and not fight that and not question that too much. At the same time, yes, I mean, I don't want you to be staying in this, kind of, it shouldn't be getting like, oh, this is becoming a pattern now. And, now 2 days and 3 days in a row, I've been just feeling that uh, level of unhappiness. So, if I'm starting to feel that way, I'm going to make a conscious effort on watching my thoughts and thinking about what I have been thinking about this situation in my head. Maybe I am thinking about like this is never going to end. This is so miserable, whatever. So I want to try to work on that and reframe. The word we use in cognitive behavioral therapy is we we consider, yes, this situation is bringing up these types of thoughts, so it's not unique to you, but you still have a choice to reframe and see, okay, can I reframe and think about that it could be worse than what it is right now? That, so thinking about your blessings and your things that you're actually, need to be grateful about, that it could be worse, but I'm thankful to not be in that state.
Right.
Then also doing things that you like to do. So engaging in some of those hobbies, doing things or trying to like be creative and learn a new thing that you always wondered about. I mean, spending time with your family and doing things to divert your interest in some other things that will generate some curiosity and in turn give you that boost and motivation.
Yeah, just on the same line, one thing. So like I'm trying to divert my mind, but whenever I talk like family or friends, like, this discussion about the current situation, like everyone wants to discuss about this, and which
Yeah.
yeah, which lets me to. I mean, I try to avoid, but like for example, my wife, she does she talks about it, and she don't care, but I'm a person like if you somebody talk to me, I start to think about it. So
Yeah.
how to handle that situation?
So, if you're feeling like, unfortunately, that's been the subject of discussion or conversation everywhere. So I I personally try to limit it. Of course, if it's your spouse, you can limit it only to a certain extent, but you can also tell her that, you're trying to, avoid discussing about this. Can we talk about something else? And honestly, no matter how much stuff is going around you, if you try to take a moment in between to take a pause and go on an inward journey to, really go over what's really going on for you when you're having these conversations with others, what kind of feelings it is generating, kind of coming to an understanding of, oh, that's what's happening, and kind of you know being aware of that, you know, cycle that my feelings drive my behavior, you will be able to also get some clarity on some of the choices you need to make right now. So, like for instance, I'm sure you're probably not watching a lot of news or social media. If you are doing that, and I would turn away from extra source of information about this, because if I am a person who gets affected by that, I will need to take extra care about not having more in-depth knowledge about this. I can actually tell others who I'm close to that, these conversations make me more, affect me more, and make me more, um, feel down or feel unmotivated and feel sad. So I request you to not talk about this with me. I think it's okay to do that, to really see that if this is the source of stress and this is the source of information, limit that, take time to be with yourself, be in touch with your thoughts and feelings, process them, acknowledge them, find a way to express them, whether it is through another avenue like listening to music or going through an old album and looking at old memories and pictures from old time to kind of bring in some distraction and good kind of happiness through that, or reading something more meaningful or listening to something that might be more appropriate and joyful for you. I mean, there is, those types of things you could do.
Okay,
I
thanks.
know. Yeah, I hope that was helpful. And I know I'm watching the clock. Poonam, sorry I went over.
Not a problem, Dr. Leena. Yesterday I had to attend the meeting. That's the reason I rushed. But if you have time, others have interest. I'm getting a lot of questions privately also. So it depends, Dr. Leena, upon your availability. I am absolutely fine to go over time.
Okay, well, we want to make sure others are fine with that too. So if people are able to stay, I'm happy to take a couple other questions.
Yeah, let's do that because I think this is very timely question, and I can share my experience also because I do have that layoff experience myself and how I handled it. But the situation was not that hard as it is, but the question is how to handle the negative thoughts because of current job market, especially in terms of layoffs and finding new job.
Hmm. So, Poonam, you want to share your experience about this since you said you've been in this boat and you've tackled this before?
Yeah, so it was 4 or 5 years back, and as I said in the beginning, I'm here 20 years. It was unexpected. It was definitely a little bit of a shock to me. But because of this positive mindset and because of this resilience, I would say, or meditation, I just said, this is another event in my life. I'm not going to take it personally. It happened for good. I don't need to drain out my energy. I gathered all my energy and then I said I need to do what I can do to best of my ability. I just had only 2 weeks to find another job role. So I did share with my resume and my situation with around 70 to 80 people within my current company. I was not shy at all because, as I said, I did not take it personally. I said for business, we are numbers, and when it comes to numbers, comes from top, it has to happen. So no negativity for that manager who gave that pink slip to me. Um, and then I said, let me just try it out, and things worked out great. I don't want to take away the whole time. It was the last day. I had to return my laptop, and at 5 o'clock the day before, I got another job offer, which is a better job offer. My skills are used better. So what I'm trying to say, I have that mindset. Whatever happens, happens for good, and what is will happen, that will also happen for good. There is always that silver lining. I don't need to, have that fear, and when situation will come, I will deal with it. That's what I tell myself. And once you go through it, as Dr. Leena was saying, facing your fears is very important. How can you keep running away from that fear? So let it come. I will deal with it. And that's, writing down, I am having so much experience. I am awesome. I have achieved so much in my career. If I cannot get, who else can get that job, right? So that confidence, that needs to be there with you. So that's what my experience in short, but I can, share more later on, Dr. Leena.
No, that was really very, very well said, Poonam. It's very much in alignment with what I would say, even from cognitive behavioral therapy perspective, there is this whole focus on being in here and now than worrying about an imaginary future. And, it may not be quite as imaginary, like maybe that's becoming a part of reality of your life, that this is looking like it's coming, or it may be coming in the next few months. But why ruin my today in this anticipation that this will come? We don't know, it may or may not come to you. And if it came, having a game plan and action plan of how will you approach that, rather than worrying about it every day and feeling like you're not even able to have a peaceful moment in the current time. So, so um, we do know that worrying and overthinking and having those negative thoughts do deplete our energy. They take away our ability to actually have clarity in decision making. There's been enough research to show that that's what happens. That people who have more of these negative patterns, they end up having lot of difficulty making good decisions or coming up with good problem solving solutions. And so if we can divert that energy to, okay, let me come up with a possible plan of action if that were to happen. And this is my game plan. We'll see if I need to really use this. If I have to use it, I will use it. If not, I've thought through this and I'm going to not re-engage in that thought every single day in anticipation of this likely to be going to happen.
So, Dr. Leena, there is one more question.
Uh-huh.
Um, so it is, if we keep, like, it seems that it is scary for some of people, like watching thoughts attentively, sometimes quite stress. I'm not
Sometimes,
sure.
so watching your thoughts and making a note of your thought make is stressful, makes you more stressed. Is that what the
Like
question
you
was?
were sharing that ruminating, yeah, you kind of go in that mode.
Yeah.
So then how do you come out?
Okay. So um, you so yeah, I can understand that that can happen. So a lot of the times we are not even aware of this whole concept of our thoughts are driving our feelings, and feelings drive our behavior, right? So when you're starting to learn about this and you're originally starting to build this awareness and start watching your thoughts, you might be noticing like, oh my gosh, like I have so many distorted patterns, and I'm only thing I can think about is all negative, and I can't seem to kind of get a handle on anything positive. And that can be a scary experience, because you're now becoming aware of, oh, there's lots of thoughts that are happening. And so what we say is that, in if you're noticing or having that kind of experience, you start noting down actually so all those thoughts, because the rush of negative thoughts is much higher than like the force. I often use the word like there is a mother thought, and then there's all these baby thoughts that follow right after it, and the speed of those thoughts can be pretty fast and scary, and you can get down into that spiral where you are feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm getting attacked from everywhere, from all kinds of distorted patterns or negative thinking. So one thing is to start to note down a few of those, so you have an understanding of what are some of the main ones. And I'll tell you why that's important. Other thing that we know that helps to slow down our speed of those types of thoughts, and you're feeling like I'm just exhausted thinking about this, because that's kind of another expression people say, that I go into that pattern, that circular pattern, and the ruminations just exhaust me. I'm just tired of thinking. I want to shut it down. I want to shut that chatterbox, but I'm unable to do that. And that's where breathing techniques, the other component of cognitive behavioral therapy, the behavioral therapy part, that behavioral techniques comes in. So cognitive techniques are thought related techniques that we use to challenge the thoughts, but we know that there's also a behavioral component to anxiety or negative thoughts, which is basically what you feel in your body. So, in order to tackle the behavioral part, we actually recommend you do breathing exercises, if as simple as just sitting down and taking 5 to 10 deep breaths. You will notice as you're breathing and feeling calm, your speed of thoughts will start to slow down. There is relaxation techniques. There is something called as progressive muscle relaxation, where you make a conscious effort to tighten and release your muscle groups, and you start from the toes, and you breathe in, contract your toes, and you breathe out, you relax those toes. Then you move to breathing in, contract your ankle muscles, and then you breathe out and you relax those muscles. So even that exercise can be tremendously helpful to slow down that cascade of fight flight, that physiological response that's been generated by all these worrisome or fearful thoughts. And that in turn allows your speed of thoughts to slow down. There is also another behavioral exercise called guided imagery, which is basically what it is you take a moment to breathe for a few times, and then imagine being in a moment that was a pleasurable event for you. So if it was, let's say, a vacation in on a beach kind of destination, or if it was a moment with your family members, you were attending a wedding, or whatever that might be for you, make a conscious effort to take yourself back into that moment and experience the whole event vividly, bringing in all the sensory parts in, like, oh, there was this uh, kind of day that day. The sun was shining. I felt that warmth of sunshine on my cheek and my shoulders. I looked at the blue skies. I was looking at the waves of the ocean, and they were coming, making those sounds and coming towards me. I feel that, roughness of sand in my sole of the feet. So again, you're enhancing the sensory experience of being in that moment, remembering all the fun moments or the good moments you had with your family or with your friends, and allowing yourself to take a break from those negative thinking or whatever spiral you are in, to take yourself away, think about something pleasant and calm. Even that can be a strategy to, slow down some of those thoughts. So there's a number of behavioral techniques. I listed out a few, but meditation, mindfulness exercises, relaxation exercises. There's these whole array of these types of behavioral techniques come under the behavioral component of CBT. So for us to have a real good success to apply CBT for thought management, you have to do both. You have to do the behavioral techniques along with the cognitive techniques. They kind of go hand in hand. And usually, if we do both, we see much more success rather than trying to do only one.
That's wonderful. Leena, there is a request if you can share any other handout where these behavioral methods you were explaining are
Sure.
mentioned.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay.
So this last thing on this slide is about positive self-talk. So Poonam, like you were saying, like telling yourself, I have a lot of experience in the job context kind of thought. I have done so well. I can get through this. I am, pretty talented. I have lots of resilience. I can, whatever. So, in this little flower petal, you see there's like, you can even do little like flower like this, or or a piece of paper and draw a flower and say, this is my positive self-talk to myself. So I'm going to spend time being, doing that positive self-talk with me. So the more I do that, the more I can, replace the positive self-talk, sorry, help, this will help replace the negative thoughts with this positive thoughts. Because, if I'm like, it's almost like, if I'm getting rid of, if I'm replacing things with positive stuff, if I'm starting to fill the water, from the tap drop by drop, the old water is going to spill out. So if I fill myself with positive news, positive people, positive company, positive self-talk, I can really, get through this.
That is awesome ending, and I think some of you might have read my published autobiography. So that's what my whole journey tells, how to filter out negative voices in your head, how to learn that art of empowerment, self-empowerment. So feed that kind mind which uplifts you, and learn to calm or make the unkind mind quiet, so that you feel that empowerment, feel that upliftment. So that's what I learned in these 20 years, being an immigrant here. It was not easy journey, went through lots of ups and downs. Negative like voices were dominating at one point. So, but I think that is all good because I do have that experience and I can share with others. Others can learn from my learning. So if you have that kind of experience, that is also a blessing, because then you can help others.
Absolutely.
Yep. So let's take a quick 1 minute jam. What we do, just a minute meditation. And one other last thought I was thinking, yesterday we were talking about happiness, right? It's your attitude which makes you see things differently. So it's not happy people who are thankful. It is thankful people who are happy. So as I'm saying, adversity was there, but I'm thankful for that adversity in my life because it taught me a lot and it made me rather appreciate life. I don't take it for granted anymore. So it made me learn lessons of life. So be thankful for all kind of experience, whether it's tough time what we are going through, whether it's job layoff, whether it's that freedom we are not having to go out and meeting or talking to our friends in person. We are learning new things, new skills. Maybe these skills will come handy going forward. Who knows?
I just want to add to what you're saying. I think a lot of the times we don't appreciate or understand what's good in this to look, what's the silver lining in this dark cloud. How do you even expect me to look for that? And a lot of the times the silver lining may not be apparent there and then, but it may be just matter of time, whether it is few weeks, months, years after the experience, you look back and you will find that silver lining. So you've got to be patient that there's always something to learn, and there's a silver lining to every dark cloud. It may not be apparent, but it will be if you hang in there. So that's another, I guess, thing that goes with that, because often I get this question like, how do you expect me to look at the silver lining right now? And there's nothing going right now. And like you, I have had my own experience where I have not appreciated that silver lining in that very moment. But later on, it came to me and it gave me that realization that, oh, in fact, there was one that I did not notice back then, but now I can look back and see it.
Thank you so much for adding that. That's absolutely needed. The power to tolerate, right? It is a power. Tolerance doesn't come easily. We need to become resilient over time with that patience. So we'll talk more. So now let's do a quick meditation. Taking just a minute. I sit comfortably. Gently, my breath slows down. I relax my body. I let go of speed, of the rush and push of thoughts. Relaxing, letting go of these thoughts, I become still. I become peaceful. Peace flows through my mind, through my body. I am peaceful, calm, relaxed. Thank you everyone for joining us today.